This is the part of the series people are not going to want to hear, but the historical record is unambiguous and the academic literature has documented it for decades. The modern deployment of "We are a republic, not a democracy" did not come from the founders. It came from a 1955 pro-segregation book called You and Segregation, written by former Georgia Governor and future U.S. Senator Herman Talmadge. The book used the phrase explicitly to argue that majority support for civil rights and racial integration should not be allowed to override what the author framed as constitutional principle. The phrase was then popularized by the John Birch Society, founded in 1958 by Robert Welch. The Birchers made "We are a republic, not a democracy" a central tenet of their ideology. Their stated reason was that they considered democracy a scam by which majoritarian rule would lead to the collapse of Western civilization. What the Birchers actually meant by Western civilization and what the underlying panic was about has been documented extensively by historians of the period. Mike Caulfield, summarizing the academic record, describes the underlying argument as a panic that demographic shifts would eventually allow groups historically excluded from political power, particularly Black Americans, to wield democratic power. The Birchers wanted minority rule, specifically minority rule by the former majority. The John Birch Society printed and distributed bumper stickers and pamphlets reading, "This is a republic, not a democracy. Let's keep it that way." Their members handed them out at events through the 60s. The phrase was deliberately seeded into mainstream political discourse as a tool for opposing civil rights legislation and the Voting Rights Act, and a democratic majoritarianism more broadly. Political historians Matthew Dallek and others have documented how Bircher rhetoric and the ideology were eventually absorbed into mainstream conservative movement. The phrase that began as a segregationist defense of minority rule became over decades a generic talking point deployed in conservative political discourse without most users knowing where it came from. This is the documented history, and it matters because the rhetorical work the phrase does today is the same rhetorical work it was designed to do in 1955. Justify outcomes that contradict popular majorities. Frame anti-majoritarian results as the actual point of the system rather than as a problem within it. This is part 4 of a 5-part series called Republic, Not a Democracy. Part 5 makes explicit what the phrase typically defends, because once you see the structure of the argument, you cannot unsee it.